Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and 2018 is almost over. Black Ops 4 has been out for a couple of months now, and Christmas noobs are filling our lobbies, right? So I thought today would be the perfect time to sit down and discuss the game. Specifically, I want to talk about the team balancing aspect of Black Ops 4, because this is something that was discussed quite a bit back during the beta, and even more now with the full game, and I think there's a lot of misinformation and conspiracy theories being thrown around about how Call of Duty matches you up with other players, and then how it divides up the teams afterwards. Because of this, I'm actually seeing a lot of people calling Black Ops 4 the sweatiest Call of Duty game ever, and it's getting to the point where lots of people are talking about quitting the game because it's too stressful to have to try so hard every single match. Now, this is obviously going to be one of those topics that is very controversial, right? So I'm sure everybody has a different take on what's happening with the game and what's happening with the franchise, so I just ask that before you come to a conclusion that you watch the entire video, and I also ask that everybody be respectful to one another down in the comments, because at the end of the day, we're all just Call of Duty fans here to discuss our favorite game. So with that being said, let's start at the beginning with skill-based matchmaking, right? It's been the big Call of Duty boogeyman for some time now, but I've always been on the opposite end of the fence from the community when it comes to this topic. Let's begin with what skill-based matchmaking actually is, right? The idea is that the game will only match you with other players of an equal skill level, so that every match is going to be competitive. If you're a good player, you'll always face other good players. If you're a bad player, you face bad players, so on and so forth, right? A great example of this would actually be the ranked modes that we found in previous Call of Duty games. If you guys don't know, League Play is coming to Black Ops 4 in early 2019, but another example would actually be the ranked modes in other video games out there as well, like Overwatch or Rainbow Six or League of Legends or CSGO. Every single one of those games has a ranked mode where you go in there, you play a bunch of matches, and then the game will give you a rank based on how you performed, and from there on out, you will only play against other people of an equal skill level. Well, for years now, people have been saying that a system like that, a ranked online system, was secretly added to the Call of Duty public match multiplayer, but I honestly don't think that is true. The reason why is because we don't have any real evidence to support the idea that skill-based matchmaking actually exists. People have tried to prove that it exists, but they haven't been able to conclusively do it. Even Drifter last year with Call of Duty World War II, he did a full study on it, and while there were some weird things about the study itself, he could not prove without a shadow of a doubt that skill-based matchmaking actually existed. The only real evidence that people have is that they're not doing as well as they feel as though they should be, or that the other teams on average are better than they should be. Well, it's really hard to base fact on feels, right? We can base fact on numbers, but we can't really base it on feels, and as a result of that, if a proper skill-based matchmaking system was indeed in the Call of Duty multiplayer, how could people have a 3 KD? How could people like myself be winning 75 to 80% of their matches despite playing solo 90% of the time? Now, of course, I'm only one person, right? It's a very small sample size. I can only speak for myself here, but back in the original Black Ops, I won 82% of my matches. In Black Ops 2, I won 86% of my matches. In Black Ops 3, I only won 70% of my matches, but I rage quit all the time in that game because of advanced movement, and here in Black Ops 4, I also win 80% of my matches. Using other games as an example, I had an 83% win rate in Modern Warfare Remastered and a 73% win rate in Call of Duty World War II, again, playing completely solo probably 90% of the time. Now, the reason why I bring up these numbers is because if you guys have played any ranked mode in any game ever, not even just COD, but any game in general, then you know that most people in a ranked competitive environment have a win rate much closer to 50%, because if you're only playing against people of an equal skill level, you're only going to win about 50% of the time, sometimes more, sometimes less, of course, but nowhere near the 80 to 90% that we see here in the Call of Duty franchise. Another great example would be kill-death ratios. How do you explain people having a 3 KD, 4 KD, even a 5 KD if they're only playing against other 3, 4, and 5 KD players, right? It just really doesn't make a ton of sense. Another strike against the idea of skill-based matchmaking would be the player ranks, and I completely agree, right? There are people out there who say that rank doesn't equal skill. And I agree with that to an extent, but I think we can all agree that rank and skill are somewhat related when you're talking about non-prestige level 40 or under players being matched up against prestige masters. I mean, for crying out loud here, even the best players in the world, actual professional players, are being matched up against these super low-level players who walk around the map like they don't even have a full grasp of how the controller works, right? These people have default Xbox names and PlayStation names, and there's nothing wrong with being new to the franchise, but there is something wrong when you're talking about these new players being matched up against actual professionals and then saying that skill-based matchmaking exists, right? It really just doesn't make a ton of sense. How can you believe in skill-based matchmaking and also believe in Christmas noobs? If skill-based matchmaking was really a thing, then surely the Christmas noobs would only face other Christmas noobs until they play the game enough to get a proper skill rating, and then after that, they would only play against other people with an equal skill rating, right? They wouldn't be thrown in immediately to the wolves playing against pro players and prestige masters. I think the real issue at hand here isn't skill-based matchmaking, because when you look at it logically, it just doesn't really add up. In my opinion, the real reason why Black Ops 4 is so sweaty is because of the team balancing, which is a completely different factor than the actual matchmaking side of things. Now, if you guys don't know, pretty much every online video game out there, not just Call of Duty, has systems in place to balance out the players in a given lobby. How they do this isn't exactly known because, of course, the community would abuse that system if they knew how to, but basically, every lobby is divided into two teams based on the skill of the people in that lobby. Now, like I just said, we don't know exactly how the game determines player skill, but it's also, like I mentioned earlier, it has to be based on real numbers rather than feel. The game can't feel how good of a player you think you are. It can only go off of the numbers, and because of this, I believe that the skill rating that Black Ops 4 assigns us is based off our kills, our deaths, our wins, our losses, our average objective time, maybe things like overall time played, prestige level, score per minute, and maybe even other outside factors like challenge completion percentage or time played in previous Call of Duty games. These are all stats that can be tracked by the game, and from those stats, it can assign you a skill rating. And for the sake of the video, let's say the skill ratings range from 1 to 10. Based on what we know about the matchmaking, the game will always put you in a lobby solely based off connection. This is made difficult, of course, if you live in a faraway region or if you're playing with friends that don't live close to you, but the game typically tries to put everybody in a match very quickly based on their connection. Once everybody is randomly thrown into the lobby, the team balancing aspect then takes effect. Let's say hypothetically that these are the assigned skill levels of the players that were thrown into the lobby. To make the teams balanced, the game needs to make the overall score for both teams as close as possible. On paper, these teams are actually pretty balanced, right? But because the 9 skill player is the highest skilled player in the lobby, they have more lower skilled players on their team, which means they likely have to carry harder if they want to win. Now, on paper, if everybody pulls their weight, then the game should be close and competitive, but if people underperform, as 1 to 2 skill level players will tend to do, then the game's balancing just goes all out of whack and higher skilled players are left with a super sweaty lobby. As far as I know, this kind of balancing has been in every single Call of Duty game because team balancing has always been and always will need to be a factor. I've seen some people saying that all Treyarch needs to do is retune the team balancing and Black Ops 4 will be that much better, but there really isn't any way for them to do that I'm aware of. Of course, I'm not a game developer. Team balancing isn't based off of feel as far as we know, right? It's based off of actual numbers, and so basically look at every lobby and every single person in that lobby as a series of numbers, and based on those numbers, the game will automatically try to make everything as balanced as possible, and because of this, the only real way to fix the team balancing issue, and I know people don't want to hear this, is skill-based matchmaking. I know, bringing up skill-based matchmaking is like discussing the devil himself, but that's where we are here with Black Ops 4. The reason why matches seem so much sweatier here in this game as compared to previous games is because it's a harder game. With everybody having 150 health by default and having things like Crash's shield and making it take oftentimes 6 bullets to put somebody down, then of course having all the other special abilities, it is much harder here in this game for a solo player to carry an entire team to victory. We talked about this back during the beta, and it's just as true now that we're several months into the full game's lifecycle. That's why Black Ops 4 seems to be so sweaty. As far as we know, it's the same matchmaking and the same team balancing that we've always seen, but because of the fundamental changes that Treyarch has made to the gameplay, bad players are worse than they normally are, and they will hold you back more than they normally do, and the only way to really fix that would be to remove the bad players from your lobby, which would therefore mean the addition of skill-based matchmaking, which I know nobody wants that, so that's kind of where we are right now with this game. Now, since we're talking numbers so much here in this video, here are going to be all of my detailed stats going from level 1 all the way up to Prestige Master. As you guys can see, throughout my non-Prestige and first Prestige, I pretty much exclusively played with a party of my friends, and as a result, I won 95% of my games while holding over a 3 KD. I wish I could act like that was a super skillful feat on my part, but it really wasn't. It was actually super easy and super relaxing because I was playing in a full party. Black Ops 4, more so than in previous years, is the best game to play with a full party in because it's near impossible to lose unless you're facing another full party and that full party outplays you. It's really easy when you play in a full party, but as you guys can see here, going back to the stats, as each Prestige went by, my win rate per Prestige and my kill-death ratio per Prestige started to go down, and that's because I started to play solo a lot more, and by my 4th Prestige, I was pretty much solo 100% of the time. At some point around 5th Prestige, I started to really work towards dark matter, and especially on the harder weapons for dark matter, and that's where things started to get bad, because remember, if you have decent stats, the game is going to put bad people on your team. The game expects you to carry, but it's really hard to carry when you're using weapons like the SDM, or the Outlaw, or the MOG 12, or the pistols, or the combat knife, or things like that. You guys may remember me saying that I was losing motivation to play Black Ops 4, and it's not because I don't like the game. I actually really do enjoy the Black Ops 4 multiplayer, but I had no fun whatsoever trying to carry these terrible teams game after game after game, while also using these terrible weapons while facing people using really good weapons. That's how team balancing works, right? And it's very frustrating, and as you can see from the stats here, my KD kept going down, and at one point, my win rate was at 58%, and at one point, 56%, which is actually just freaking terrible. But then, as you can see here as well, once I hit 10th Prestige, and I finally finished up Dark Matter, my KD jumped right back up. My win rate went from 56 up to 87%, even though I played twice as many games in my 10th Prestige, and it's because I was able to use the good guns again, right? The unfortunate truth is, there really isn't anything Treyarch can do about this. It's something that just has to happen unless they are going to add skill-based matchmaking, which is something I don't think a lot of people want to see happen. I have seen some people suggesting that lobbies should be randomly put together, kind of like they are now based on connection, but then they also say that teams should be balanced randomly, but I honestly think that would hurt the game a lot more than it would help, right? Because there's a reason why team balancing has existed in pretty much every online multiplayer game ever, including even the old school Call of Duty games. Team balancing has always been a factor, and that's because nobody wants to join a game and get completely blown out right from the start, especially if they know for a fact that the game didn't even try to make it a balanced and fair match. In fact, I would say that's one of the biggest problems with Black Ops 4, right? People hate the fact that their teammates are bad and they weigh them down oftentimes, but remember that the game is at least trying to balance out the teams, and also remember that good players still win and do well way more often than they don't win and do well. We act like balancing in Black Ops 4 here is the worst we've ever seen, but let's be real, if it was as bad as we make it out to be, people wouldn't have 3 KDs. People wouldn't be winning 80% of their matches. It's the same balancing we've always seen, but you have to try a little bit harder to be a good player, and that's because the game itself inherently is harder. You have to put more bullets on target. You have to deal with specialist abilities. You have to basically be a better player. You have to play better here in Black Ops 4 to do well than in previous Call of Duty games, which is by design. It has nothing to do with matchmaking or balancing or anything like that. It's how the game was built from the ground up, which again, may or may not be everybody's cup of tea. We talked about this a lot in my several reviews I've done so far of the Black Ops 4 multiplayer. If we make the matches completely random, then sure, sometimes you're going to be part of a blowout victory, and you'll stomp people into the ground, and it'll feel really good, but you'll also be on the receiving end of that just as much as you're on the giving end, and there's no worse feeling in the Call of Duty franchise than losing and being blown out despite you yourself having twice as much score as anybody else on your team or even in the entire lobby. If team balancing was completely random and basically didn't exist, that would happen way more than it does right now, and I don't know about you guys, but I hate losing matches where literally nothing I do matters because my teammates are so bad that it's almost like they're playing for the opposing team. So that's why I'm personally in favor of the system that we have right now. Is it a perfect system? Of course not, but it's pretty much the same system we've always had here in the Call of Duty franchise, but it's made a bit more difficult by the fact that Black Ops 4 is inherently a more difficult game to do well in, with how much health everybody has and these specialist abilities and things like that. But ladies and gentlemen, those are my thoughts on the matchmaking and the team balancing here in Black Ops 4, and I would love to hear what you guys think down there in the comment section below. Going full circle here, I know this is a very controversial subject, so please be civil down there in the comments. I would love to hear how you guys are finding your matches so far in the opening months of Black Ops 4, and what suggestions you would have for Treyarch to improve the experience. Leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments. Thank you guys all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.